Hey guys, and welcome to Collider Movie Talk for movie fans. I'm your host, Natasha Martinez, and this is the daily show where we give you all the latest news in the world of movies, plus some insight into what it all means. Joining us today is Mark Ellis.
Welcome one and all to the best movie news show in the entire galaxy, live from our studios here in Cincinnati, Ohio. On today's show, Spider-Man gets a future, Hellboy gets a facelift, and if you're John McEnroe, just do it! Natasha, who's joining us today?
Dennis Zen is also joining us today.
Yeah, happy Friday, guys. Wait, it's not Friday.
We're so close to
So
that.
close. All right, yes. Well, I'm glad to be on the panel with you guys today.
This week is confusing enough with the whole 4th of July, so please don't confuse us anymore, Dennis. Also joining us is Perri Nemiroff.
Happy to be here, but how would you guys feel if I hijacked the show and just talked about Glow and Mark Ellis's RX bars the entire time? Nobody even knows what that is. You don't find that funny, but one day you will.
I would love to talk about Glow. Also joining us, Clarke, Wolfe.
Thank you. I was also confused by you saying it was Friday, Dennis, so that was not cool, but I really liked your intro, Mark Ellis.
Thank you
Good
very much,
job.
Clarke. Does not make up for what you did to me last Friday, but we'll try to move on.
Nothing but love, nothing
Have
but
a
love
good
for
movie news
you.
show where somebody knows a little bit more about cinema than this idiot right here. All right, Natasha, what's our first story today?
In a new interview with the Toronto Sun, Marvel Mastermind Kevin Feige enlightened fans about Spider-Man's new role in the MCU, revealing that his full story will ultimately span 5 movies that don't just include his solo movies. Not only will the anticipated team-up movies Avengers Infinity War and Avengers 4 be an important part of Spider-Man's storyline, but he will also be the character that will introduce us to Phase 4. We're looking at a 5-movie storyline: Civil War, Homecoming, Avengers, Infinity War, Untitled Avengers, Homecoming 2, or whatever we end up calling it, as an amazing 5-story journey for Peter Parker. In the way that events of Civil War directly inform the opening of Homecoming and his state of mind as he goes back to high school, so too will the events of the next 2 Avengers movies as he continues with high school. This original 22-movie arc ends with the Untitled Avengers in May of 2019, and then 2 months later it will be Peter and Spider-Man that usher us into the aftermath of how things proceed from there. Mark, thoughts on Kevin Feige's comments about Spider-Man's story and his relation to Phase 4?
Natasha, my initial thoughts have less to do with Spider-Man and more just that how spoiled we are as movie fans today. He mentioned a 22-movie arc. We get that many cool comic book movies. When I was a kid growing up, you got 2 Batman movies. One was great, one was like, okay, and the last 2 sucked. And that's all we had. And now we're talking about a 5-movie arc with Spider-Man. And I like what Feige is saying here, Clarke, because it appears that Spider-Man, being the most famous, or at least arguably the most famous Marvel Comics character ever, is going to be ushering us into Phase 4, because we don't know what's going to happen to our Avengers, our beloved Avengers, at the end of Infinity War or the end of the 4th Avengers movie. So some of them either die or retire or change course or get a new life. We know that Spider-Man is still going to be around high school or maybe applying to colleges, so he's going to be in his crime-fighting prime. Is that how you see it, Spider-Man being the right guy to lead us into Phase 4?
Absolutely. I think they're smart to play it as Spider-Man is the anchor, essentially, of Phase 4. And I think, too, the fan reaction, the critical reaction to Spider-Man in Civil War and in Homecoming has been overwhelmingly positive. As you said, he is probably was the most high-profile superhero, or one of the most high-profile superheroes before the MCU kicked off with Iron Man. So this is a big, big win. And honestly, I mean, I like the idea, too, that they're not promising us 5 standalone movies. They're kind of saying, no, we know Peter Parker's going to show up a handful of times here and there. He will have some that are on his own and then some where he's intermingling with the other Avengers or members of the MCU. So I think it's awesome. I also think it's very interesting, kind of piggybacking on the story that we talked about last week with Venom and Sony and all this other stuff, like the fact that Feige's out there promising 5 more movies with Peter Parker I think it's pretty telling.
Yeah, Dennis, we make so much about the current contract that the MCU and Sony have together, being able to share this beloved character. Would these comments to you indicate that not only Spider-Man could help kick off Phase 4 for us, but also be in future MCU movies past the current contract?
Well, I think both of you guys make a good point that with Iron Man and with Robert Downey Jr. himself kind of saying that maybe he's not coming back. We haven't had an Iron Man movie in a very long time. Maybe they want to hitch onto Spider-Man as that lead now, especially considering how anticipated this movie that I haven't seen yet. I know some of the people here have.
You haven't seen Homecoming yet?
No, I have not.
Dude.
I haven't either.
Yeah, I'm gonna see it later tonight, so I'm super excited for that. But this also tells that maybe they're gonna have the rights longer, not the rights, but the ability to use him further along. With Spider-Man, I do think he is the most recognizable and popular Marvel superhero. I think the big three to me are Batman, Superman, and Spider-Man. So for them to be able to use him in Phase 4, I think is crucial.
Yeah, Perri, when you look at the current landscape of Marvel movies and you see that Spider-Man is now kind of infiltrating in a very pleasant way what he did in Civil War, what he will be doing in Avengers, which we actually reported on this a couple weeks ago. He might not have that big of a role in Avengers Infinity War, but what that spells for his future and possibly Phase 4, how do you see this shaking out?
I love this story because I love the fact that this is a situation where it's not like Homecoming didn't come out and they're like, oh, you get X amount of more movies to show this character's arc. Now that I've seen Homecoming and I can read these quotes, the first half of what Feige said works. One of the best parts of Spider-Man Homecoming is the fact that it feels really small and intimate, but still reflects what happened in the MCU prior. So if they're that successful right now, it sounds to me like Spider-Man is going to be the perfect character to usher us into Phase 4 and kind of give us another really personal, intimate. I just combine those two words.
You like combining words.
Here
Perri.
we go
Conrad.
again. I like combining words, and then I like taking people's names and just swapping the first letter, like Woos Prillis. Isn't that fun?
Willis is great.
Okay, but getting back on track here. So it does sound to me like Spider-Man is going to be the perfect person to follow up the events of the Avengers movies because it works so well here where Civil War felt really important in Spider-Man Homecoming, while it was still a movie about Spider-Man and his individual journey. So I think this is an excellent plan. And also, Feige's given this quote now more than once, so it doesn't sound to me like, bringing up the Venom stuff, where we're constantly, grabbing all these crazy quotes where it's like, oh, so-and-so could appear here, so-and-so could appear here. Oh, Spider-Man is going to exist in that reality. This makes sense, and this sounds like an arc that has been well planned out.
Yeah, let me spin it this way, Wark Kulf. So I have seen Spider-Man Homecoming, and Dennis actually makes a great point, having been somebody who hasn't seen the movie yet, is that you can watch Spider-Man Homecoming, and obviously Tony Stark is in it, but the star of the movie is Spider-Man. So I'm going to go out on a ledge and make a sports analogy. Maybe this is a situation where you have your star player in his later years where he's coming off the bench and being kind of like that mentor that is still an integral part of the team, but is not necessarily the marquee star. Do you see that happening with the Avengers, possibly in future Spider-Man movies going forward?
Absolutely, I do, and I haven't seen it either. So Dennis is going to probably see it later today, and I'm not because I'm a normie and don't get to see things early. But that's okay.
I'm not seeing her. I paid my money. I'm seeing the late screening tonight.
Okay,
so.
fair enough.
Are you seeing it in the Prime?
But
Yes.
I think it's
so.
really it's smart, and I think too if it didn't feel so authentic as it did in Civil War, meaning Robert Downey Jr. and Tom Holland's chemistry and relationship, because I thought they were great together. I thought they were really natural and fun and funny foils and for one another. And so I think I think you're right. I think it's cool that Tony Stark could potentially serve as that mentor for Spider-Man throughout the movies, whether or not he's front and center. But the fact that those two actors have such a good relationship makes it that much better.
Yeah, Dennis, we've seen that attempted in a lot of different huge franchises, and sometimes it works really well. I thought it worked incredibly well in Force Awakens with the Han Solo character. I thought it didn't work so well in Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull with Harrison Ford doing another character. So do you think that'd be the right way for these superheroes, these Avengers that we know and love right now, to walk off into the sunset, is to help them usher in a new generation of superheroes?
Yeah, I think what you said about the sports analogy is right. They will mentor in the younger generation. Tom Holland is obviously much younger than what we already have with Chris Evans in Captain America and Robert Downey Jr. in Iron Man. So I think we already see the Avengers have a new lineup. I do still think that main crew that we had before is going to be the focus of Avengers Infinity War, but I think the second film will probably do a transition to some of the newer characters that we've seen, maybe Doctor Strange, Black Panther, obviously Spider-Man. And because they said the Spider-Man Homecoming, I don't know what it's going to be called, but whatever the sequel is going to take place minutes after the second, or basically the fourth Avengers film.
Yeah, it's a great point that Dennis brings up here because, again, we have the core Avengers, but we also have newer characters, and that's not just limited to Spider-Man. That's Black Panther and Captain Marvel coming out, Ant-Man. So some of these characters are going to continue on into Phase 4.
Oh, without a doubt. That is exactly why they're setting it up this way. Another really cool thing about this, I mean, you mentioned that it's going to take, Spider-Man Homecoming 2 is going to take place minutes after the events of Avengers 4. It's also coming out 2 months after Avengers 4, which I think is a really big deal because we don't really hear that happening too often. And I think that is a sign that the story connections between these two movies, it's going to be key. And with Tony Stark mentoring Spider-Man, I'm not going to go into any details, but I really think that the position that Spider-Man is in versus, let's say, other characters that we know of in the MCU, it's something about like his mentality and the way he looks at the world that I think is going to make him one of the best possible leaders if we're talking about some sort of regime shift and a leadership shift going forward in the MCU. So this all sounds like it is very promising and very smartly planned out.
That's right. We got a little bit more Spider-Man Homecoming stuff later on in the show, but right now we move on to Hellboy and those pesky blood queens.
In an article from Splash Report via The Hollywood Reporter, Lionsgate is in final negotiations to pick up and distribute the Hellboy reboot entitled Hellboy: Rise of the Blood Queen. The new movie will be directed by the Descent filmmaker Neil Marshall, with reports saying production is looking to begin principal photography this fall. Stranger Things' David Harbour will star as the new Hellboy in a story adapted by its comic creator Mike Mignola. And while the movie has found a studio and start of production, a release date and full cast list has yet to be announced. Clarke, what do you think about Lionsgate? Is it a good home for the new Hellboy reboot?
Yeah, I think it is. I'm of two minds about this. So obviously, I love Guillermo del Toro. He is my favorite living director. But I know that this is a project. Hellboy is a project that was very dear to his heart and Ron Perlman's heart as well. However, you know, the powers that be have made alternative decisions, and so now, boy, what an interesting shift, and going to Lionsgate is also very interesting. So I just saw The Big Sick this past weekend, which was a Lionsgate film. This is a smaller budget, you know, independent co-production, like romantic comedy that's R-rated and unconventional, and it was lovely. And I think that Lionsgate has a really interesting track record of sort of finding things that are off the beaten path. And so I think that it makes really good sense for them to want to pick this up, especially too because their franchises, they don't really have a whole lot of franchises currently in action. The last thing that I want to say is I hope that Lionsgate recognizes that, yes, Hellboy was sort of, in terms of movies, put on the map by the people like Guillermo del Toro and Ron Perlman, but Hellboy is still one of those characters that maybe audiences don't know and love so much, and he's not really part of a bigger brand, at least that we've seen on film so far. So they've got their work cut out for them a little, but I talked to David Harbour on the Stranger Things red carpet less than a month ago, and he could not be more excited to be Hellboy. And I spoke with Neil Marshall, gosh, I want to say last fall, and he was like, yeah, I think we're still doing Hellboy. I don't know. But he is super, super passionate about this too. So I think if it's not Guillermo and Ron Perlman, this is a great pairing, and Lionsgate, it could potentially be a really great home for this franchise.
Yeah, I'm a fan of the team making it, from David Harbour, obviously, and Neil Marshall. And Mike Mignola being involved in this story, he's the creator of Hellboy. So as much as that franchise might be associated with Guillermo del Toro, it's not his property to do what he wants with. And the first two Hellboy movies, or the only two, I guess, I said this before, you see just all this imagination just dripping off every frame of those movies, so it looks great, but imagination also costs a lot of money to put on screen sometimes. If you're going to do a reduced budget, I think that Lionsgate is a studio that's capable of pulling it off. They've also proven that they can handle big tentpole franchises like Hunger Games if it gets to that level. I don't think this movie's going to, but I think that Hellboy, on a smaller budget, could have that fan base reignited and make some profit, whether it's here or overseas. Perri, how do you see this movie coming out?
So yeah, I'm still a little sensitive about the whole GDT thing. I felt bad because he was very passionate, so was everybody involved, and they had a third chapter to give us, which they couldn't because that movie would have been the most expensive of them all, and the first two movies didn't justify that kind of budget. So I do understand. It's just I wanted Guillermo's version of, the last chapter of his saga, not a fresh one. Then when Neil Marshall came on board, that changed things a little because I'm a huge Neil Marshall fan, and if anybody can turn this into something that honors the source material but still feels fresh and different and is a good movie, I really think it could be him. And I'm excited for David Harbour too. The fact that he's excited about it, the fact that I loved him in Stranger Things, amongst other things, it seems like the right package. And when you pair it with Lionsgate, I was really hoping that after Hunger Games came out, because the thing with Hunger Games is that really just changed the game completely for Lionsgate. That was its major tentpole franchise that put it on the same level as, all the other big studios out there. And then all of a sudden, Hunger Games ended. And not that Lionsgate hasn't had any successes since, but they most certainly didn't have anything that was going to be on that level again. I mean, Divergent crashed and burned and broke my heart, but that's the end of that, and I'm going to get over it. And now it seems like they're finding a lot more success with lower, medium budget movies. So like a John Wick. John Wick is doing really great for them right now. So if they take that approach with something like this, sounds like it could be a good pairing.
Yeah, so Dennis, Hellboy Lionsgate, what do you think is the ceiling for a movie like this?
Yeah, with what you guys saying is Lionsgate does need a big franchise because they lost Hunger Games, but I just don't see this being it. No matter how good the film is, I just don't see a mass market appeal for it. I think it can do well, and especially if they're going to go with a lower budget, their expectations for the box office are going to be far less. Yes, like you guys, I was looking forward to a Guillermo del Toro, Ron Perlman, Hellboy 3. Obviously, they couldn't do it for the money. I mean, the first one, I think, did okay at the box office. I think in home video, it did very well, so they made the second one. But those revenue opportunities are not there anymore. Now people are streaming stuff, so they can't do that. But, I mean, Neil Marshall, I'm more familiar with Neil Marshall's TV work than his movie work. He did 2 of the most memorable episodes of Game of Thrones. He did Watchers on the Wall and Blackwater. And then David Harbour, I liked him. I think he'll make a good Hellboy. But yeah, it's difficult to see it go beyond Guillermo and Ron Perlman, but I'm still reserving hope for this one.
Yeah, and I have all the sympathy in the world for the hardcore fans of Hellboy that really wanted to see Del Toro's vision of the third one, but you also have to remember something else. That there's a current trend going on in comic book movies that I think is pretty cool, that we're going away from some of these huge budgeted, inflated money-spending movies and making smaller films that have really good stories and tight scripts. Look at what Deadpool did. That not only ushered in R-rated superhero movies, but it also told Gambit, hey, we'd love to make your movie, but we ain't spending that much money on it. So let's see what they can do with this new Hellboy movie. Maybe they make it for $30 or $40 million, and it ends up being great with a really cool story. I hope that's the case. We'll have to wait and find out. However, we do have some movies coming out this weekend. Natasha, has Dennis seen any of them?
I don't think so. And you know what? I haven't seen any of them either. I'm so excited to see this one, though. Spider-Man Homecoming is coming out this week. Thrilled by his experience with the Avengers, young Peter Parker returns home to live with his Aunt May. Under the watchful eye of mentor Tony Stark, Parker starts to embrace his newfound identity as Spider-Man. He also tries to return to his normal daily routine, distracted by thoughts of proving himself to be more than just a friendly neighborhood superhero. Peter must soon put his powers to the test when the evil Vulture emerges to threaten everything that he holds dear. Also coming out this week is A Ghost Story. Recently deceased, a white-sheeted ghost returns to his suburban home to console his bereft wife, only to find that it is his spectral state he has become unstuck in time, forced to watch passively as the life he knew and the woman he loves slowly slip away.
Ooh, boy, that doesn't sound fun.
So sad.
Spider-Man Homecoming is obviously the movie that I'm excited to go see again tonight. I'm going to see it as well, and it's a movie that I had a smile on my face start to finish, so I highly recommend it. For anybody that likes going to movies, this is a flick for you, and it's definitely worth seeing in the theater. A Ghost Story, the trailer didn't hook me. I see what they're going for. It felt very, I hate to use this word in a negative light, but it felt like they were trying to hit me over the head with artsy stuff. And I get it. You're a dead ghost, and it sucks watching your lady move on to somebody else. But what do you want her to do, Ghost? You want her to stay with you? You're dead. So I don't think you have a good shot at taking her to prom. And every time I see the white sheet, all I can think of, Clarke, is the Maitlands dressing up and trying to
Totally.
scare the Dietzes out of that house in Beetlejuice. Do you think a ghost story could be the next Beetlejuice?
No, I don't. But good try. I haven't seen either of these movies either. I'm very excited for Spider-Man: Homecoming. And as far as a ghost story goes, if you were following me on Twitter, you saw that this morning I was having a bit of a tirade about this post-horror nonsense. But regardless of that, I think that those going into something like a ghost story should not be expecting a horror movie. I think they've been very outspoken in the fact that this is not a horror movie like you would expect. It does involve a dead person, and it does involve a traditional ghost-looking thing because it has a sheet. But
You were so excited.
yeah, exactly. Ooh. But I think that if you're looking for a good scare, this is probably not it. But I don't know. I haven't seen it, but I'm just telling you what I've heard. So.
Yeah, Perri, I can't even imagine this is like an It Comes at Night situation where you think you're getting one horror movie and you get a different horror movie.
Two totally different things.
I think the trailers for A Ghost Story seem to be selling what the movie actually is, which is
Exactly.
nothing in the horror genre at all.
Yeah, no, I'm surprised that people think that. Really,
Well, it
because
is
it's called a ghost story.
and
Yeah.
it has a ghost
I
and a
guess.
dead guy.
Maybe it's just because I have been following that movie since it premiered at Sundance and I have watched all the trailers. But no, I most certainly have not been looking at that thinking I'm going to get my horror fix for the weekend. But I'm a diehard A24 fan, and I like the fact that they give me a lot of quality films that span so many different stories, genres, everything. So I will see it eventually. But I will say that even though I've already seen Spider-Man Homecoming, I am not seeing A Ghost Story until I find time to see Spider-Man Homecoming a second time.
I think that probably is the right play to make. Dennis, which one of these movies are you most excited to see?
Well, obviously it's Spider-Man: Homecoming. We've been talking about for many, many months, and I've been hearing all the buzz that from people like you guys have already seen it. So I don't want to talk too much about it. I'm going to go see it tonight. I'm sure it's going to be great. A Ghost Story, I haven't been following it, so when I read the premise, I was like, this sounds ridiculously stupid. Then I went to go look at the trailer, and as soon as that A24 logo pops up, you go, okay, this is going to be something more serious, something more dramatic. You have Casey Affleck, you have Rooney Mara in it. This is one of those movies that it's going to probably walk the fine line for me, and I'll probably check it out sometime and see where it lands. Is it going to be so ridiculous it's just stupid, or is it actually going to, be heartfelt and touching? So I'll probably go see Spider-Man first and then watch A Ghost Story later.
That's a word used to describe me is ridiculously stupid and heartfelt and touching. All right, let's move on to buy or sell. This is a part of the show where Natasha's going to give us the premise and we lay down our hard-earned currency, whether we buy it or sell it. What do we got first?
Warner Brothers has released a new extended TV spot for Dunkirk. Now only a few weeks away from release, Dunkirk chronicles the British military operation that saved 330,000 lives as Allied soldiers were surrounded by German forces. Dunkirk stars Fionn Whitehead, Tom Hardy, Kenneth Branagh, Mark Rylance, Cillian Murphy, and Harry Styles, and opens in theaters on July 21st. Dennis, do you buy or sell the new extended TV spot for Dunkirk?
I'll buy it. I'm really looking forward to the movie. The shots are great and beautiful. I mean, the way it's edited with the big bold letters coming out, not exactly my favorite. I will say what I'm not liking, and I don't know if we talked about this on a previous episode of Movie Talk, is the billboards. I don't know if you guys have seen the Dunkirk billboards. They're terrible around town. They're just really close-up shots of the faces. You can't tell it's a war movie. They don't have Chris Nolan's name, very small. They're trying to sell this as something it's not. Like, to make you look at it and go, what's Dunkirk? Like, is it Dunkirk, at least in America, is not a well-known event. So they almost try to make it look like it's some sort of sci-fi thing coming out from Chris. Yeah, if you look at the posters, that you can't tell it's a war film. It's a very close-up of all the characters' faces, and there's just like sparks coming out. So yeah, that I don't like. But this trailer, I'll buy just because I'm looking forward to the movie.
Yeah, I don't know in my advanced age, but I'm getting grouchy too. But billboards have been upset all the way back to Rogue One when it looked like it was a movie about stormtroopers at Sandals in Bermuda. I want to see the billboard show us exactly what it is. I will say this TV spot, though, does the job because it got my heart pounding. I actually saw it on TV, and I'm like, yeah, that's what a TV trailer should do because TV trailers are made for people who were not aware a movie was coming out. So if you saw the trailers for Dunkirk already, congratulations. You saw the special teaser, you saw the 2 minutes, or you saw the 7 minutes that they put in IMAX in front of Rogue One. If you didn't see any of that and you're watching TV and you see this ad come on, you're like, oh my God, Christopher Nolan is doing this kind of movie. It's a rescue operation. It's a war movie. It looks exciting. It looks fast-paced. And it looks like something different that we certainly have not gotten this summer so far. So it's a big buy for me on the TV spot. How about you, Clarke?
Yeah, I buy it. I think as a teaser, it does what it needs to do. And, I'm sort of lukewarm on my anticipation for this movie, but hopefully it's great. But I think the teaser is really good, so I'd buy it.
Perri.
Oh my God, it's an enthusiastic buy for me. I'm so excited. I'm so surprised that it's like a little lukewarm from you guys, but I think this TV spot is freaking fantastic. And I do see, Dennis, what you mean with these billboards. If the images that I'm looking at right now are what we see, outside on the street, because it's one thing when you're looking at a computer and, the large majority of the billboards seem to just focus on the title Dunkirk. That is the large majority of the poster. And then if you look in the details, like you look behind the text, that's where you see the little details of war. And the story is very clearly conveyed. But when you're driving down the street, odds are you shouldn't be looking at that billboard long enough to see those tiny details.
Yeah,
so
Dennis.
I get it. I definitely get it. But this
Some people walk in this town. Okay.
All
all the way-
You know
all the way
what?
to the
Cancel the
studio.
show. Uncle Dennis is going to hop us in his van. He's going to drive us around town and point out the billboards he does not approve of.
Yes. I'll take
That'll be a
pictures.
great behind the scenes. We'll make that happen soon. But with this TV spot, I think it's freaking fantastic. You can pause at any single frame in that TV spot, and it's just, when you're promoting the 75 millimeter screenings, the IMAX screenings, that's the kind of imagery you want, where there's so many different layers to the images, and every single shot, whether it is a close-up of someone's face or you get a wider view of the war that's going on, it hits you in a certain way. And you pair those images with that ticking clock and that score, and without almost any dialogue at all, that whole thing completely engrosses you and makes you feel like you're right there. By the end of that TV spot, I was kind of like, I was tense.
You know where I saw that TV trailer? I was watching Wimbledon. Now we got a story about it.
Oh,
Get ready.
That was a nice little transition. A new Red Band trailer has been released for Borg versus McEnroe, the new movie that stars Shia LaBeouf as John McEnroe and Severa Gunnarsson as Bjorn Borg. The film revolves around the pair's infamous rivalry that culminated in their Wimbledon match in 1980. The lead up to the match will be a key part of the film, with audiences treated to what really happened on and off the court. Directed by Janice Metz Pedersen and also featuring Stellan Skarsgård, Borg versus McEnroe is slated for release on September 15th. Perri, buy or sell the new trailer for Borg versus McEnroe?
I'm going to give it a light buy. I'm very curious about this movie, mostly because I am fascinated by Shia LaBeouf, for better or worse. But I want to see this. It's a great story. The trailer just didn't really do it for me, the way that it's cut together. It's like, as the title said, it's Borg versus McEnroe, and it felt like a whole lot of Borg and just very little McEnroe, where we only saw his little temper tantrums. And when you get so much of the stuff of Borg in his childhood, it's like if I got an even amount of that with McEnroe, then I could have seen them, rise together and then this big clash at the end. But because of the way it's structured and the information I got, when it comes to those bigger moments at the end, I'm just like, okay, I like Borg.
Well, I
That's
think
it.
the arc of Borg is why I'm buying this trailer, is because I clicked, or Clarke was watching it. I was like, hey, can I watch? And seeing, Shia LaBeouf as McEnroe might be the headliner for us here in America, because, Shia LaBeouf is pretty good at yelling and having an occasional meltdown on camera. And John McEnroe was great at that when he was playing tennis in the 80s. But the story of Borg is really the story of McEnroe and his career arc, too, because Borg was so much more than a flash in the pan, although he didn't have the extended career that a lot of other tennis greats might. He was the best tennis player on earth for a long period of time, and then he suddenly walked away. When he walked away due to injuries or other things going on in his personal life, that was almost like a Batman and Joker relationship fracturing between him and McEnroe, because all of a sudden McEnroe had no rival. He had this guy that he could literally put a picture of him on his bathroom mirror like Rocky did with Ivan Drago in Rocky IV, and just stare at that guy and say, this is why I'm going to the gym. This is why I'm putting in all those reps every day, because I want to beat this guy. So when he leaves the landscape all of a sudden, where does McEnroe go? So seeing Borg and him making his career decisions and seeing how far he can push his body and his mind in the pro sport of tennis as you have all this heat and pressure placed by the press and fans and everything else coming into his personal life. I think this trailer, Clarke, does a really good job of showing us the emotional toll that it took on both of those guys just having a sports rivalry.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I really think you said it beautifully, and I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
But it's a big buy for me as well. And honestly, I think, look, I've always really liked Shia LaBeouf. I think he is an incredibly talented actor. I really, really do. I don't know him as a person, and I know his personal life sort of overshadows his talent. But hey, who does that sound like? Oh, John McEnroe. Because John McEnroe is an incredible athlete, and yet his personal life has always overshadowed him. I think the fact that we did delve more into Borg's life in this trailer is because when you think of, I mean, John McEnroe is still out there being John McEnroe, even to this day. So this was a big, big buy for me. I think it's really interesting how these tennis movies are becoming, like, not only is, not only do we have this, but we have Battle of the Sexes, and I, for some reason, thought of the Andy Samberg HBO movie from last year.
Yeah, with Jon Snow.
Yeah, with Jon Snow, which is also fun. But yeah, this is a big buy for me.
Dennis, what do you think of the trailer?
Huge buy for me. I actually played tennis when I was younger. It was back when McEnroe was big and Jimmy Connors and Ivan Lendl. So it was a little bit after the Bjorn Borg days. But then I watched that HBO documentary, Fire and Ice, that talked about McEnroe and Borg. And I, like you, Ellis, I'm actually fascinated, and I buy the trailer mainly because they're showing from Bjorn Borg's side, and they're showing that, like, just kind of some of the quotes he has about how, yeah, people expect me to win, but it's not easy. Just because he's the favorite and he's the dominant player, you still have to put in the work, and there's a lot of pressure behind it. So I like that they're going from that viewpoint. And then obviously Shia LaBeouf in this role, I think, is perfect. Whatever he does in his personal life, sometimes clouds how talented an actor he is. And I think he fits perfectly in this role.
I saw Shia LaBeouf one time at a Jersey Mike's in Hollywood. Totally normal dude. Super nice guy. That's all I got to say about that. All right, let's move on to our next segment. We're going to remind you guys at the end of this show, we're going to take some of your live Twitter questions. So go ahead and start tweeting us right now at Collider Video. But right now, I want to remind you guys that we have a brand new show on Collider Video called Comic Book Shopping. Woo-hoo! John Schnepp is the host. And this week on Comic Book Shopping, none other than Lincoln Park participates. We ran a clip of it yesterday, and you guys can check it out on the channel right now. You do not want to miss that. We also have a really cool giveaway on Collider.com. So if you go to these show notes right here, the link in that description, you can click on that and check out our Baby Driver giveaway. It's a really cool Baby Driver gift pack that's going to include some Baby Driver sunglasses. You get the soundtrack. You get an autographed poster signed by writer-director Edgar Wright. All you have to do is log in with either your Facebook account, your email address. It's very easy. Just follow the link in this description or head over to Collider.com. We also have an all-new episode of Jedi Council coming up later on today. And every Friday, we have Awesome Tacular, Jeremy Johnson's show on the Go90 Network. You can check out the latest episode also in a link in this vid's description. But do not forget, tomorrow, the Collider Collision goes down. July 7th is the date. It's a whole lot of movie trivia schmodown carnage. Here's a quick look.
There's a championship match coming up. We are going to take on the winner.
There is still a path to victory. We are here to erase villains and bring back heroes.
You can throw anybody you want at me. I'm going to hold on to this thing for years until finally somebody has to forcibly retire me to be like, okay, Hector, we need other people to play.
I can't stop here. You can't just get here and then stop. I got to go for Hector. So Hector, it's you and me, man.
Christian Harloff. This is the match I've wanted since I started in the schmodown.
I get texts from you all the time how much you want a title match, and it's pretty ironic that you actually have to beat me in order to get one.
I beat you twice already.
I'm shocked, and I
So
beat
that
you once.
get Dan next. For a year, I fought my ass off to get a shot at Dan, and I beat him.
But I'm happy to take you and Merle on.
You want to do this?
That's
the
fine.
triple threat. So he's going to give me a shot at that belt at Collider Collision. We're going to make this a triple threat.
The Collider Collision airs tomorrow on July 7th, and it's going to be a whole lot of mess of good stuff, Clarke. We also have some very exciting news in your world.
Yes, indeed. I'm also very excited for Collider Collision, just putting that out there because I couldn't be there.
Because you're this close to a belt yourself.
This close. So I would just want to take a second and talk to you guys about Nightmares and the status of Collider Nightmares. So just to let you guys know, we are super happy with the way Nightmares is going. We're super proud of the series. rivalries. And we're very supported by you guys, and we're supported here at Collider. But we wanted to let you know that for now, we are going to take a step back, and we're going to put Nightmares on hiatus. But this is by no means the end of Collider Nightmares. Basically, what we want to do is we want to take a step back and kind of take a look around and see what we can do with the title and with the property in the future. So we're not going anywhere. I'm clearly not going anywhere. But just so you guys know, for the next couple of months, we're going to be on a temporary hiatus.
Genre forever!
Genre! Yeah.
I love watching Collider Nightmares. You're an incredible host of the show. And whenever it comes back, don't expect to see a ghost story talked about, because that's just a guy who misses his girlfriend, because he's dead now. All right, let's move on to Mailbag. You guys can email us anytime, whether we talk about your email here on Movie Talk or on our weekend shows Mailbag. We will get to it. Hopefully, eventually. collidervideo@gmail.com is the address to send, and Natasha has one right now. What do we got?
I sure do. Lucas Wentz writes, so the Book of Henry has been getting pretty scathing reviews, but one thing pretty much everyone agrees on is that it's highly original. I'm wondering if I should go see it. There's been a lot of complaining in this day and age about the abundance of sequels, franchises, etc. I figure the only way to change that is for original movies to make money. Obviously, in a perfect world, a movie would be both original and good, like Baby Driver. So even though I fully expect the Book of Henry to be awful, should I buy a ticket for it anyway? If for nothing else, then to encourage studios, filmmakers to continue taking risks on original ideas.
I like your train of thought, Lucas Wentz, because let's say that you are the person that has all the say in the industry. Let's say that every studio is looking at Lucas Wentz and how he spends his movie-going dollar. Then I applaud your decision to say, hey, this movie's not getting great reviews, but I'd rather see a movie that's original and different and something that maybe we haven't seen before and might be bad than spend my money on something that is a huge, big-budget franchise that is also probably going to be bad, like a Transformers. So I think that Book of Henry is something that I would also caution you that not every review has been scathing. I really liked the movie. I thought it was a job well done by Colin Trevorrow and the entire cast. So the story was very original, very different, unique. There's some tearjerker moments in there. It takes a lot of twists and turns. I think you might end up liking the movie. So I understand that people want to look at tomato scores and they want to read their favorite critics or watch their favorite YouTube personalities and say, oh, I'm going to judge their opinion of a movie. But sometimes you just got to check stuff out for yourself and just be confident in your own fandom, Lucas. Thank you for having $10 to spend on a movie. And if you don't want to go see the movie, you can set it my way. So I always need some help paying the rent. Dennis, the Book of Henry. Should Lucas spend his hard-earned dollar on that because it's an original movie?
Well, I haven't seen the movie yet, so I can't make a recommendation based on the actual quality of the film. But what I will say is, look, if it's a film that you're interested in seeing still, and it draws your attention, and you're intrigued by it, and maybe there are some negative reviews, I'd say still go see it. However, I wouldn't say go see a movie purely based on the fact that it's an original movie. Some of the worst movies ever made are original movies. The Happening is an original movie. It's a terrible film. So I don't think using your money that way. I usually get upset when it's an original film that people don't go see. I remember last year when Kuba and the Two Strings came out and nobody went to go see it. And then people complained about not enough original movies. When you have a good quality one out there that isn't getting the attention it deserves. But I personally don't believe in the philosophy of only seeing a movie just because it's real. I think movies, the quality is totally dependent on the whole process and how the movie ends up, whether it's a remake, reboot, sequel, franchise, popcorn flick, or indie. It's more about the quality of the film.
Perri, is originality enough for Lucas to go check this movie out?
Well, I'm with you on Book of Henry, and I certainly did not hate it. I think certain parts work a lot better than others, but overall, I walked out feeling pretty positive about the whole thing. So if I had done a review, I would probably recommend going to see it. But, as much as I do want to support original movies, I don't think that is the reason to go see it. I mean, I think Dennis just said this. If you want to see Book of Henry, just go see it for yourself, because the truth of the matter is, even if thousands of people out there said, okay, we're only going to see original movies this year, I really don't think that would even be enough money to kind of change things up and make franchises start to disappear and more original movies to crop up. That's just not how it works. It works like that when a movie like Baby Driver comes out, where it's really good, it makes more money than expected, and then a studio feels compelled to make something else Now I'm almost going to backtrack on what I said because I was just about to say something else like it, which would then almost ruin the whole original idea thing, but it would inspire them to take risks and do something different. But you know what? If you want to go see Book of Henry, just go see it and don't let all those reviews kind of taint your experience, because just because other people say it doesn't mean that's the way you're going to feel.
That's right, Lucas. Perri and I are always here for you. Clarke, Wolfe, what do you think about this email?
Well, I haven't seen Book of Henry, but I would say, look, I like that your heart's in the right place to support independent film. But if you're a person that looks at reviews to guide your ticket buying ways, there are so many independent movies that have great reviews. The Big Sick, I know I mentioned it earlier today and I mentioned it last week, but I love this movie so much. And this is an example, a clear-cut example of a movie that played in 2 cities, and demand was so overwhelming that the studio actually did expand it across the country and is working to expand it across the country. That is because enough people turned out to support independent films that happen to be good. And so I would just say, as I said earlier, I think that if you're going to support independent movies and you are looking at reviews, you don't have to take a pill and swallow it, just to do your due diligence. Like, there are so many great indie films that aren't being seen. So do a little bit of research. Like, take a look at what was popular at maybe some of the film festivals over the past 6 months and see if they've come out, because now that we're hitting summer, a lot of them are.
That's right. Or stay home and watch Family Guy. All right, let's go to live Twitter questions. This is the part where Wendy has been monitoring y'all in the Twitter sphere, and she's got a couple ribald, robust questions for us to answer right now. Right, Wendy?
Oh, I like that, robust. All right, this one comes from Chris Gomez, who writes, what sports rivalries would you like to see adapted into a movie? Mine would be Sammy Sosa, Mark McGwire home run race.
Oh my God, there is not enough time in all the movie talks in the world for me to gush about all the sports rivalries that I really want to see. A great one just came out in documentary form that was between the Lakers and the Celtics, primarily in the 80s, but it went all the way to the history of the Celtics and the Lakers. It was narrated, the Boston stuff was narrated by Donnie Wahlberg, the LA stuff was narrated by Ice Cube, and it's great. It's on ESPN right now. It's an amazing documentary. As a huge NFL fan, my only hesitancy with putting some of the great football stories or rivalries up there, whether it's like, Redskins Cowboys, or you want to do like even something more modern, like a Giants Patriots, Super Bowl Reduxes. Who do you get to play these characters, and how do you make the NFL action look realistic? Because if you can't make it look realistic, oh my God, it really takes it down a notch. Dennis, sports rivalries, who you thinking and why?
Man, they already did a movie for it, Miracle on Ice, kind of that U.S. versus Russia thing. That was a documentary they had done before called Miracle on Ice, and Disney turned it into a film. And I sometimes with these sports movies, you kind of prefer unknown actors to play these roles. That way you don't think of, it was tough. Like, I think Will Smith did a great job playing Ali, but at the same time, you still see Will Smith in there. You kind of want to see someone that is lesser known.
Yeah. Perri, what do you got?
How about the great Perri and Mark Ellis basketball rivalry? It'll be a really exciting movie because no game will ever be played.
It's going to happen eventually. I believe we were on the books for a tennis match a few weeks ago,
That
too.
we were.
So
that kind of fell apart, but we can make that happen.
Basketball, any sport, just name a place, and I'll show up, and I'll be ready to ball. Clarke?
I'll stick with the tennis theme. I would love to see a movie about Venus and Serena Williams. I mean, there was a time when they first kind of came on the scene where they were the number 1 and number 2, or they were both, obviously I think Serena is the superior player that we know now in hindsight, but I think it would be really cool to see not only them both playing in the same sport at the same time, but kind of their upbringing and their training as well.
I'm going to pitch a baseball kind of like after his prime movie about Shoeless Joe Jackson, because after Shoeless Joe Jackson was blackballed from playing Major League Baseball, he just kind of, he had really nowhere to do. There was legends of him showing up at other league games and playing. One time, Ty Cobb was on a road trip down south, and he went into a drugstore, and the guy behind the register was Shoeless Joe Jackson. And they're both like older men now, and they just kind of looked at each other, and they're just like, they just had that look in their eye, and I'm like, that'd be a cool scene to see in a movie. All right, next Twitter question.
This next one comes from DJ Dex, who writes, what is harder to create without source material, an original slasher or an original superhero film?
Ooh, boy.
I think I know the answer, for me at least.
You're a big horror fan.
Yeah, but I love superheroes too.
So slasher or superhero, which one is easier to come up with?
I think it's a superhero because I think the criteria is very clearly defined, and I think that you want to, as people, most of us want to follow the hero's journey, and most of us want to believe and get exhilarated by the hero's journey, and no matter how it's told. But I think with a slasher movie, you're building mythology, you're building rules, and you're building scares, and I think that all of those things, it's hard to do them originally, but still make them innovative and interesting, which is why something like Scream, I think, changed the game, because you're building a new slasher mythology, but you're also creating scares, but you're also working within the confines of the genre, and I think that's probably why it's been really hard to do ever since Scream.
I'm going to make you the Borg to my McEnroe right now, because I think that superhero movies have the challenge, like a good slasher movie might, is that you need to build all that backstory and that mythology. But I think a slasher movie, we've seen them in the past be able to get away with having sort of a one-note bad guy that can even be a really menacing presence. Like if you see somebody like Jason Looming now we know his backstory, Michael Myers, but he also works just as the shadow, just as this thing that is chasing us, or even something like It Follows, where it's like, okay, there's this presence that's going after us. But I think sometimes with superheroes, and in particular the villains is really what we're talking about here, you want more backstory there. I think either way, backstory helps. I think it might be harder to make that with a superhero movie because it's an entire universe, whereas slasher movies can get away with just taking place on Elm Street. What about you, Perri?
I'm actually going to fall right in the middle. I don't think that one is more difficult than the other.
Okay,
I think
that's an unacceptable answer.
I'm cheating a little, but I think both really have enough, not genre cliches, but, genre, like formulaic things that they can fall back on, that whether or not the backstory element or the drive that's driving the character works really well. Superhero movies have their action sequences. Horror movies have their scare sequences. There's certain ways that you can get around not making the character like super, super interesting, but still delivering an entertaining and exhilarating movie. But then I think both still wind up running into that same problem of making stories, whether it's for a hero or for a slasher, that stand out, that are satisfying. I think it's kind of evenly matched.
All right, so now it all falls on Dennis.
We
to
know
be
what
the
Dennis is going to
tiebreaker.
say.
Are you team slasher, you team superhero?
I think both are very hard to do because of the reasons that you guys set out. There's already a formula that people follow. Unlike Perri, I'll actually make a choice and not be a politician. I think it's a little bit harder to do the superhero genre, just because if you think about what we have now, all of those superheroes are all based on comic books, like existing properties. I'm trying to think of one. Can you guys think of a superhero movie now that we have out that did not come from
Chronicle, Unbreakable?
Slight was a pretty good small one.
I didn't see that
Slight's a
one.
good example.
Yeah, so just for me, like I think of more the iconic stuff like Spider-Man, Superman, Batman, and that stuff.
Well, I wish I had you in my corner last Friday when I had to go up against Wolfe for real. But
Oh, stop
that was
it,
the Okay,
you.
Clarke,
Yeah.
who wins in a fight between, I just thought of this battle, Freddy Krueger
Yeah.
versus Vision?
Oh,
Oy.
Vision.
You think he's too strong? But Freddy gets you when you're sleeping.
Yeah, but Vision doesn't need to sleep.
Point Vision. Point Wolfe. One more Twitter question, then I am leaving.
This one comes from Chris Robinson, who writes, thoughts on that Guardian article naming films like It Comes at Night, The
Yes.
Witch, and Neon Demon as post-horror.
Post-horror. First of all, Chris Robinson, I hope it's the Black Crowes lead singer. Big fan of your work. Clarke, what do you think about this article?
I think it sucks. I think it was written by people. Do you know this?
I didn't read it.
Okay,
What is this?
here's the quick synopsis of what post-horror is. It's saying that movies like The Witch, It Comes at Night, maybe a ghost story are post-horror, which means they don't feature the traditional things that you would think of with a horror movie, like zombies or slashers or whatever, and that they're post-horror. And
That's the weirdest thing
Yeah,
I've
it's
ever
the
heard.
it was clear-
That is like stomping all over the idea of being able to create original properties and
Thank
like,
you.
oh, because it's original, it can't count in that
or
genre.
because it's not a gore fest, or because it's not hyper violent, or because it's not working with supernatural tropes. Like, they're saying that it's beyond horror, which is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. If you look back, that stupid Guardian article even mentioned stuff like Don't Look Now, or it mentioned Polanski's Apartment trilogy. So, but we've been living in a post-horror society for the last 50 years. just like, it's so stupid. And it was also clearly written by somebody who doesn't understand or even like the genre. Because basically what the argument is if it's thought-provoking and it's subtle and it relies more on dread and fear as opposed to jump scares and blood and gore, it's not horror, which is wrong. It's basically just undercutting the entire genre. And by the way, for those of you who watch Collider Nightmares, this is why I call it genre and not horror, because I'm clearly getting like very worked up.
If it wasn't going to take our tech guys 5 minutes to fix, I would have you drop that mic right now.
Anyway.
That is how you come back, ladies and gentlemen.
Go read the article. It's very dumb and it's insulting to horror. That's what I'll say. It's written by somebody who doesn't like horror movies and has to claim that an elevated genre story is the only way that it could be post-horror. It couldn't actually be horror because it's quality and it's thoughtful. It's so stupid.
Dennis, I have nothing to add to that, but I agree with everything Clarke said.
I mean, I didn't read the article, but from what I'm guessing, they're saying because these films they think of as higher quality, then therefore no longer the horror part of the original horror. That's just like, if you watch something like I believe like The Dark Knight or Logan or very superior comic book films and just saying, oh, it's a post-comic book film. Is that kind of what they're getting at?
I think Logan would be a great example of, they would probably look at it and go, it's a post
superhero movie or something like that.
Maybe.
I'd get a little offended as that as well, because it still fits under that thing. It's just different, or it's just something that already part of it before.
It's like looking at something like Borat and being like, this is post-comedy because it's not Animal House.
Yeah.
It's like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. There's a genre like horror or comedy or drama expands so much more than just one particular example.
The way you put it makes it feel like it is like those movies are too good for the average horror fan. That's really upsetting.
And because I'm sorry to interrupt, but to more thoroughly explain, because the cinema scores are so low on these movies, on It Comes at Night, on The Witch, basically it's saying that it's too good for horror fans to be able to appreciate because it's post-horror. At least maybe I took it wrong. Maybe I'm being a little sensitive.
I just think that we all need to stop labeling everything ad nauseum and just step back and say, did you find the movie entertaining? I saw The Witch. It scared me. Horror movie.
There you go.
All right. I want to thank everybody for all of their passionate takes here today on Movie Talk, as well as our incredible crew behind the scenes, Cody and Adam, always with a smile on their face 40% of the time. And I want to thank my incredible panel full of panelists up here with me. Seeing Spider-Man Homecoming tonight, Dennis Tzeng. Where else can the kids find you?
You guys can find me on Twitter at ThinkHero, or Instagram, Dennis.tzng. And yes, I will be watching Spider-Man Homecoming for the first time tonight.
The magic to my bird, Perri Nemiroff.
Ark Mellis, you did a great job today hosting Collider. To be mock? To be mock. That one's an awful one. I don't like that one. But you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at PNemroff, and keep an eye out for a brand new Collider behind the scenes this Saturday, 2 p.m. PST. It's a funny one.
Classy Clarke Wolfe. Where can we all find you?
You guys can find me at Clarke Wolfe, Clarke with an E, Wolfe with an E. And thank you so much for having me today, Mark Ellis. It was a pleasure.
Hey, I show up. They pay me in Arby's coupons. Natasha Martinez. Where can we find you?
You guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram at NatashaLexis_.
And last but certainly not least, Wendy Lee Zaney.
Well, today's movie talk was a giant spoiler for me because I hadn't watched you guys' match yet, but now I know who wins. So.
Well, we gave you enough time, and you can probably see the downtrodden look on my face, but I'm not on camera here all week long. I am merely Mark Ellis at the Comedy Store this weekend. I have some upcoming dates in Charlotte and possibly West Palm Beach. I'll see what I can do, Austin. Thank you guys so much. We'll see y'all tomorrow right here on Collider Video.
Hey guys, if you like this video, click the thumbs up button. Also, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. It'll help you stay up to date with everything we've got going on here at Collider.